from nothing to dust. To stars to sky. To dust to you. Bigger, greater, larger, infinite. To you. I am eternal.
Hello, guys. Good morning. It's good to see you. Glad you're here. We'd love to invite you to join us as we sing and worship together. Sing, He's the light. You're the light in the sunrise. You're the sparrow's song. Full moon on a dark night, and the hope of dawn. All of creation He's good. You're the groom to the widow who can't carry on. You're the dad to the orphan who's never known love. You're the grace for the sinner. You're our only hope. You're the body for the prodigal. Oh, you're the welcome home. There's no one like you, Lord. There is no one. There's no one like you, Lord. There is no one. How great you are. Oh Lord, there's no one like you. Man, there is no one like him. You guys are awesome. Have a seat.
Good morning, everyone. That was pretty good. Thank you. Eugene, you filled it up, though. That was best. A+. My name is Zach, and I'm one of the pastors here at Restore. I'm so excited that you are here this morning, and excited for what our morning holds. So if you're here, glad you're here. If you're watching online, welcome. Glad you are here as well. First thing I want to actually start with in the little announcements portion that we're in here is that we are entering into summer. School is starting to end up over these next couple of weeks. College students are already out, and 12 and under, 12th grade and under. What are those called? I don't know. Other kids are about to be out of school. I have two of them. I should know what they're called. But they are kids, and they're about to be out of school. Summer's almost here. And so that means a couple of things for us here at Restore, some big fun things that are coming up. But also, over every summer, we have people that, travel quite a bit or take some time away or whatever that is. And so we're always looking for a little bit of help on our Sunday volunteer teams over the summer. And so two big specific areas that we would love some help with is kids ministry and then set up and tear down. So kids ministry, we're looking for 6 folks to jump in for the summer in kids ministry. And then set up and tear down, we're looking for 4 folks to do that over the summer and beyond if you'd like to. Now, set up and tear down, I'm going to give you a little bit of a secret, is really great. You get here kind of early and you sweat a little bit, but you make really good friends. And I don't know how to sell this better than that. Okay, great. I'm doing good. Matt said I'm doing good. But one really good thing, though, actually, over the summer is that we will continue to set up this area, but the kids' gym next door, we get to leave that up over the summer, totally set up. So if you jump in on Set Up and Tear Down over the summer, you're really kind of doing half the job. So if you would like to do that, we need 4 of y'all to jump in over this summer and do that in set up and tear down, and then 6 in kids. Now, the easiest way to do that is your Connect card, a little thing that's on the seat. That's a picture of it right there. You can also scan the little digital code, and you just check the box for kids or set up, or any other volunteer team if you'd like. But those are the 2 that we'd love a little bit of extra help with over this summer. Now, also, if this is your first time, or maybe you're looking to get more connected, anything like that, you can also fill out the Connect card. Don't feel a need to check any volunteer boxes if you're not ready for that. It's totally fine. But check boxes you'd like more information on, whether it's the church or our Restore groups or volunteer teams. I'll send you all that information early next week, and I'll either text or email you and invite you to go to coffee or jump on a Zoom call or a phone call and let you just ask any questions you might have about Restore, get to know us better. I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. It's really not a chance for us to interview you, though. It's a chance for you to kind of interview us. I know it's hard to find a church. I was talking to a family earlier just a few minutes ago who'd been looking for churches for a little while. I know that it's kind of hard to find something, right? It's hard to find something that aligns with your values and that comes together with who you are and how you follow Jesus and all of those kinds of things. And so to figure out if this is the place, we want to not have you come and have to sit for 6 months to figure out is this the right place? You can just take me to coffee, or I'll take you to coffee. I'll buy, I promise. And then you can ask any questions that you have, right? And then get to know us really well and then kind of, make a decision from there. But we want you to know that what we say in that video is true. No matter who you are, what you've done, where you are on this spiritual journey, you are welcome here, and we want you to belong here if you would like to. Now, a part of making sure that we do a good job with that every single year is something we call the annual survey. And so every year, annual, we have a survey, which is where you take a bunch of questions and fill them out. This takes 5 minutes, and our goal really is that every single person in the church fills this out. That is the goal. And this is not like a survey maybe that you've taken before, that kind of, judges different metrics of how you are doing or the way that you interact with Restore. What it really is trying to do is to see if we're living into the values that we say that we care about, right? The things that we ascribe to. We want to be a church that pursues justice for the marginalized, that includes everyone, that depends on Jesus, that does all of these things, looks for ways to be generous. We want to see if we are actually doing a good job with those things. And then we take the information from this survey and we build all of our sermon series and initiatives and even budget for next year based on how we're doing over the last year. And so if you get a chance, really love for you to take this survey. It is anonymous, but you can also put your name at the end if you want to be contacted. There's a QR code. You can scan it real quick. You can even do it now. It takes 5 minutes. Totally fine. Go to restoreaustin.org/survey if you want to do it later. That would be really great. We would, again, love for everybody's voice to be heard. So we'd love for you to take that survey. Another way to get involved here at Restore is to financially support the mission that God is on in and through our church. You can go to restoreaustin.org/give. You can give one time through Venmo or PayPal or anything like that. There's a little blue box in the back too if you want to do something in person. Or you can do recurring gifts through restoreaustin.org/give. If you're able to give, we'd love for you to give generously. Also, on the flip side of that, if you're in a place where you're not really in a position where you can give, actually you maybe need some help meeting some basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, things like that, we want to help you with that. So we have an entire team dedicated to giving away funding to folks that are in need. So if you need help with that, come find me, one of our other pastors afterwards, and we'd love to help you in that space. Now, it's one of my very favorite times of the service. We do something called Good News, and this is a time where you just get to shout out good things that have been happening in your life over the last couple of weeks. We know that life can be hard and complex, but we also know that there can be beauty and goodness in the midst of all that. And we also believe that the message of Jesus is fundamentally good news. And so when we're here with our church family, we want to share that good news with each other. So, who has some good news that they would like to share this morning? Yes?
So we graduated from high school last night.
Hey, congratulations! High school graduate. That is awesome. High school. That's what I was looking for earlier. That's what it's called. High school. Yeah. Woo. Need more coffee. I did not graduate. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Other good news? Yes. Josh. Melody, that's amazing. Cancer-free. Oh, been praying for that for so long. That's awesome. Hey, Josh, congrats, man. That's awesome. Very cool. Good day for the Boers family. Love y'all. All right, what else? Any other good news? Yes? No way. Oh, the Cars had their baby. That is awesome. Very cool. Yes? Oh my goodness, track and field star among us. Love that bucket hat too. You're rocking that thing, yep. Okay, anything else? Awesome. Well, I've got a couple of pieces of good news this morning. Number one is that we are only 2 weeks away from Barbecue, which I think is probably my very favorite Sunday of the year. This is where instead of a normal gathering, we actually meet out in the courtyard, 10 a.m. Sunday morning, just like normal, but we do something that's called Barbecue, which is a mix of baptisms and barbecue. And it's just this really fun time where we do kid dedication and baptisms. People share testimonies and things like that. We have bounce houses for kids. We have a free barbecue lunch from Valentina's, which is, in my opinion, the best barbecue in Austin. Unbelievable, so good. And so we're super excited about that. That is 2 weeks from today. If you are interested in either baptism or kid dedication, come and find me or Sonia. You can email us, come and talk to us afterwards. We've already got a number of people signed up for both of those things. So if you are interested in participating in those, I can give you more information about that. It is so much fun. It is like such a fun Sunday. So we do that. We have a big barbecue lunch. You get to kind of talk and meet people maybe that you maybe like sit next to on a Sunday, but don't ever get to have deeper conversation with. So it's really, really fun. It's also something that you can definitely invite people to. If you want to invite folks to come to something like that, barbecue is a great thing. And the second thing, piece of good news for me, is that Iver Robinson is preaching this morning. Hey. Yes. Super excited about that. So Iver's the pastor at Moontower Church. She's been our teaching pastor here for the last few years. She's going to tell some of her story about Moontower and all the different things that she's been walking through and leading over the last few years, and I cannot wait to hear from you, Iver. Super excited about that. All right, I'm going to ask you to stand back up. We're going to continue singing.
Hi guys, I'm so happy you're here. Please join us and worship with us if y'all would like to. If y'all want to stand, if y'all want to sit, it's all cool. No way is correct way, but God will love it either way. Say it. Passion of our Savior, the mercy of our
truth. You have saved us eternally. It cannot be taken away. Let's take this time, guys, to rest in the Lord's presence together.
but the mountain, it will not move. If you've been struggling to remember, somebody's looking out for you. Come and rest. Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. Come and rest. Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. Do you need a mother? Do you need a father? Oh, everybody needs a friend. And are you looking for the way home? Do you want to feel that peace again? Come and rest. Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. Don't you wanna come and rest? Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. There's a time for all your working. There's a time to put your hand to the plow. Can you hear it? Jesus is singing. Oh, come and lay your burdens down. Oh, come and lay your burdens down. Oh, come and lay your burdens down. Come and rest. Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. Come and rest. Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. Don't you wanna come and rest? Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. Come and rest. Come and rest. Come and rest in the love of God. God, I pray that we can gather here today and recognize what we carry in on this day. God, whatever may be burdening us, whatever may be distracting us, God, the pains of this week, the frustrations, the small irritations or losses, God, joy too, God, I just pray that we can just come before you and just rest and be at your feet, be still and attentive to what you're doing, attentive to this moment of worship together, God, this moment to hear your words spoken through Iver, God, this moment to hear encouragement and love from our community, God. And I just pray that we can be at peace in it, God, that we can tap into that shalom, that we can honor you with our rest, God, that we can honor honor one another with it and be wholehearted and hear. God, I pray just that you can be with Iver as she speaks your words, God, as she gives her story, and that we can hold on to whatever it is that you're giving us through that, that it can be enough to carry us throughout our day or this week. I pray all of this just in your incredibly powerful name. Amen.
All right, hey everyone, how's it going? Very good, solid, good morning for everybody. There was tacos back there, so I felt like I got my morning off to a really good start. But it's been a while since I've been up here, and so most of you probably may not know exactly who I am, apart from maybe if you saw it on the website. But I am Iver Robinson, the lead pastor of Moontower Church, which is a sister church to Restore. And these last few years have been filled, I think this is like an understatement, with just a lot of ups and downs and moments where it just felt like, complete chaos. That's the only way that I can describe what has been happening. And sometimes when we're experiencing chaos, sometimes our human nature, we just want to retreat, right? And we want to put ourselves in isolation, feeling like we're the only ones that are feeling what we're feeling, just like the pure exhaustion. And just the pure pain, the pure anger, hurt, all of these things that we're feeling, the sadness and things. But the fact is that there are many others who are trying to figure out what to do with the chaos of just like the raw emotions and how to manage these things, plus life. Starts to feel a little bit hopeless when you put all of those things together. And so as I was walking through just like the range of emotions of just life and things that were happening around me, and all of those things that you take in like throughout your day, right? You take in on social media and people that you come across and whatever that thing may be, whatever burdens your heart, all of those things. I was trying to figure out, what do I do with this? Like, what do I do with all of these raw emotions? And the answer that I found in all of the trials and all of the tribulations was to let people help me. And that seems really simple, but I grew up in this way of like, my mom was like, make sure you can take care of yourself. And that's always what I've done. I've made sure that I could take care of myself. I made sure everything was handled. And so when it comes to asking people for things, it's the complete struggle. But I realized if I'm gonna make it through this thing, and if I'm gonna make it through on the other side healthy and whole and better when I came in, I had to let people help me. And so I let people help me, and I let people love me. And I was vulnerable in my raw emotional state of what I was walking through and where I was going. I feel like I learned truly what community was. And community, it's just being affirmed at just the right time and being allowed to just feel. To feel what we are feeling without fear of judgment, and to say what we need to say without fear of repercussions. And the crazy part is the reason why I came to Moontower was to do that for other people. So I could create this space where people could come in. They don't have to code switch. They don't have to take off who they are. Like, they can bring all of their baggage in. And I believe that was like the desire for Moontower Church. That is so what was burning in my heart. And I did all these things for other people. And little did I know that that community would turn around and do the same thing for me. That they would hold me in those spaces. And in this intimate and vulnerable way, we just walked. And we kept walking together. And so let me rewind, though, and take us back to the beginning of this beautiful and chaotic roller coaster ride that I would still go on over and over again, even knowing how it ended or what the outcome is. And so almost 3 years ago, well, me and Zach, first off, we know each other through FCA camp. And so we were college athletes, and a bunch of college athletes would go in the summer, and we would just work FCA camp. We'd stay up way too late. We were huddle leaders over high school kids. We'd stay up all night, go back. I was doing softball, and so I'd be on the hot sun. Like, we just had this really good time together. But Zach and I, we weren't super close. We just kind of stayed friends on social media, and we just, I would just like his stuff, comment on it. He would like mine, comment on it. And that's kind of how it was over the span of probably 10 years from when we had known each other. And so almost 3 years ago, Zach contacted me, and he says he was leading a search to find the lead pastor of Moontower Church, a church that would be planted on UT's campus with the help of its sister church, Restore. I thought, wow, that sounds like a really cool opportunity for somebody else. I'm like, you're hyping this up, this sounds great, but you're gonna have to get somebody else to do it because I got things going on. You see, this was not in my plan, and in fact, it went against everything that I was planning for my life and myself and the life of my family. I had a 5-year plan. I'm one of those people that I'm like, I put it in my notes and all of these things. I have this big vision. So I had this 5-year plan. We were moving to Portugal. I'd already picked out houses. I was showing everybody, telling everybody what we were about to do. And this was it. I felt this burning desire that this is what God wanted for our family. I wanted to world school, wanted our son to experience this life and this culture. I travel a lot, and so I'm I get the I don't know, when I'm out, I'm like, oh my gosh, the sights, the smells, the people, all of it. It just reignites something within me. And so I had my plan. Portugal was a front runner, would experience a life that involved this world schooling. I had this idea in my head that I would just be out marveling the beauty of the world around us. This was the plan, God. This was the plan. So what was this Moontower Church that you were calling me to? And obviously, since I'm here soon enough, I relented to God's plan and the plan that he had for my life, and I decided to put my name in the hat for the lead position of Moontower Church, which led me here today. And so as I learned more about what exactly it was we would be doing and the vision of the church, I learned that the church would be in the Baptist Student Ministries on campus at UT, and we would all work together with the larger community of the Baptist General Convention of Texas, which is the organization that the BSM is under, and the organization that we would then have to be under as well in order to just use the space. And so, me being me, I've grown up playing sports, I'm a team person, I'm all about it, and so I'm like, oh yeah, we're about to do this. And so I was under this belief that our goal as a collective was to make this beautiful experience for all who walked into the doors of Moontower Church. And this very soon became a dream rather than a reality, as we realized this road was gonna be tougher than maybe we thought we were signing up for, and harder than we could have imagined. This road was gonna be filled with people continually believing we were the other because we loved all people, yes, even our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters. And how dare us let women lead and women of color lead and have diversity and backgrounds and thought and theology and all of the things. And yes, we even had some agnostics and some all types of people come into Moontower, people who eventually converted to other religions. We've had many people come into the doors of Moontower. We welcome them in, and we love them in. And the one thing that I'm so proud of is everybody who came in said they felt seen and they felt welcomed. And to me, that was the greatest win that we could have, because whether or not they came back, they knew that they were seen, and they knew that they were loved, and they knew that they were welcomed in the doors of Moontower Church. And so, yes, we would open our doors to all people who were hurting, all those who were lost, who had been outcasted by other churches and organizations. And because of that, we were met with numerous challenges, right? You wouldn't think so. We were met with numerous challenges where we faced with tough decisions. We were faced with tough decisions because of who we were and the beliefs that we stood firm in, which was that anyone has a seat at the table and everyone can experience the extravagant love of Jesus. And so as I'm casting this vision of this all-inclusive church, one of the focuses, one of the things we want to do is focus on love rather than condemnation. And I sat through meetings. That's what I did, the first probably year, just meeting after meeting with people, casting vision, letting them know who we were, what we were about. And so I sat through meetings with different people and organizations, and I was meeting with this student organization, and I was casting vision about our church, and how we just wanted to be a safe place for people. And so at the end of all of this, they asked me, well, when will you tell them about sin? They said, when will you disciple them? I said, okay. Well, since when did discipling people mean guilting people into choosing Jesus and making them feel like the lowest of the low and their only option was Christ? Yes, this is true that he is our best option, but it's because we are lovable. And it's because we are created in his image, and as image bearers, I don't want anything separating anyone from Christ, from God, anything. And so that was the conversation, is that we want to love people well, and we'll do everything we can to have people get closer to God. That's all people, including myself. And so we were told it was unfortunate that we didn't believe the same gospel. I just sat there baffled. Really? And instead of building each other up as a church and as a people of God, I quickly realized that it was every man, every woman for themselves. And as we dealt with a mega church that said we were unable to use their worship team because they signed a non-compete clause. This was church. You really can't make this stuff up. I'm like, how is this church? Why did I come here? Why am I even here? What did I get myself into? These are the questions running through my mind as we talk more about the story of Moontower Church and all that Jesus did through our time together. I want us, though, to look at a story of Mordecai and Esther, because it really reminded me of the ways that God can take a story, make it his, and use it for his glory when you live into the position that God has placed you in. And so Esther is a woman that was positioned for something more than she could have ever imagined or thought. And so when Esther lost her mother and father, her cousin Mordecai, then he took care of her. And so he takes care of her, and he basically takes her in as a daughter. And so Mordecai, though, tells Esther to tell no one of her Jewish heritage and family ties. And so she ends up becoming one of the women who are chosen to be an option to King Xerxes' wife. And so eventually Esther finds favor in the eyes of the king, and she becomes his wife. She continues to keep her heritage a secret out of the obedience of Mordecai. And then there was a man named Haman, and so he's promoted to be in a higher seat, and even higher than the king's nobles, and so he becomes promoted to be basically second in command, his right-hand man to the king. And so because of this promotion, everyone must bow to Haman due to his new position in command, and so due to his new position to the king. And so, but Mordecai, he refuses to bow. And so he starts causing waves. And the book of Esther doesn't say exactly why, but if we feel like why he chooses not to bow, but if we fill in the blanks, we can possibly conclude that Mordecai was not bowing to anybody who was not the King of the Kings and Lord of Lords, which is God and God alone. And because of his refusal to bow, this makes Haman angry. And so we pick up the story in chapter 3, verse 8, where Haman goes to the king about this issue of Mordecai not bowing and not respecting him in his high position. And so verse 8 says, Then Haman said to King Xerxes, There is a certain people dispersed among the peoples and the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all the other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury. You see, people are threatened by the differences of others, and if they don't get the others to conform, then usually violence and judgment are inflicted on those who are now a threat to order. And so the threat to order comes when those who stand stand up for what they know to believe to be right and true. And so when I decided to come to Austin, what I had known about Austin was this keep Austin weird energy. My family's from here. I loved coming to Austin. I come to South by Southwest. All I had known was this is a fun city. The culture here and this energy, everybody's accepted. It's just this really cool place to me. And so I thought because of the culture of the city that the churches would be more open-minded and progressive. But I soon realized that the goal of the churches was to put the walls higher and higher on the entry of the church doors. And so in order to keep the community of Austin out, and I thought, the people who we should be loving are the people who are most often judged and told they're not good enough to be loved by God. So I was confused by this, because why would you come to a place, plant a church, and tell the people in that particular place that they're not good enough to be a part of your church and to be a part of their own community? And in turn, that meant they weren't good enough to be a part of the community of people who were loved by God. And so we see Haman, who was intolerant and who was prideful due to the power of his position. And he in turn responds by wanting to destroy an entire group of people because of one person who would not bow to him. And because of Mordecai's custom and beliefs are not in line with the king and the mainstream theology and thought process of the culture, then Haman aims to wipe out anything and anyone that is countercultural. Have you heard a story like this before? Anything that goes against the grain is seen as a threat. Because of that, an entire group of people suffer. And instead of being embraced because of their differences, they are shut out and shunned. So we kind of experienced something similar at Moontower in the ways that we did not fit into the surrounding church culture. First off, I did not check the box of white male, so that was kind of an issue. Something I can't change, though. And so being in a predominantly white space and being a black woman at that, it was a threat to order. And so we went through a lot because of that. But on a campus of 52,000 students, yes, UT is so big, there's over 1,000 clubs that are there's over 1,000 clubs, and less than 100 of those have a religious affiliation. So some say about 10% of the school identifies with some type of religion. That leaves roughly 90% to be reached by the gospel, which is over 46,000 people. I remember meeting with this student who had a goal of getting all of the local churches together. He wanted to do this, he had this vision of doing basically a church service with all of the churches and having the different pastors come up and teach and all these things. I was like, that sounds like a cool idea. And so I started asking him more questions about it. And so he named off some of the churches that would be involved. And I said, hey, those churches don't affirm women. So if my church was involved, I wouldn't be able to go up on stage and teach. And so I said, and the LGBTQ plus stance, we just differ in that. And so I told him he would have to make a choice. But the smartest choice for him, honestly, I told him, he's a young kid, I said, the smartest choice for you is to go with the masses, because that's where the money's at. You need money to fund what you're doing. You want people behind you. So the smartest thing for you is to go with the masses, which would leave out an incredibly large amount of the school's population, but it would include a significantly larger amount of the church population. See the imbalance there? And that remains the problem when the churches cannot open their doors to all who are in their community because they're too busy being countercultural to stop and love people where they're at, the people who they are supposed to serve. And so over and over again, we met other churches and student organizations in our UT community who were content with remaining in their bubble. But we tried to do the opposite, because we knew that we needed to burst the bubbles in order to reach the people that God needed to be reached, and we did that. We found an intimate and loving community with one another at Moontower Church, and God allowed us to find each other just at the moments when we needed each other the most. So CJ's here today, and she's one of the students who was at UT. She was invited by a friend at church, and I asked a couple people, hey, can you just send me something, what does Moontower mean to you? They actually had wrote some stuff on social media already. So I was like, hey, will you just send me something? And so I wanted to share this because it's hard for you to get a picture of who we really were and what we really did with our time together without hearing from some of the people that I just love so deeply. And so CJ says, Moontower to me was more than just a space where we could all gather. It was a second home to me. And in my 21 years on this earth, I have never felt more comfortable coming into a place and being my 100% authentic self. When I first started attending Moontower, I put up a front and only displayed my presentable side of myself. The side with no anxiety, no fears, no questions. And in such a short amount of time, Pastor Iver and the entire Moontower staff became people that I could lean on when I had such fears, doubts, questions, and uncertainties. In short, I'll forever be changed by these wonderful people, and I am eternally grateful that I want to mess this part up, that God was the one to bring us all together. That God, only God. Man may try and stop you. People may have other plans for you, but God and God alone will be the one who will help you to pursue what he's placed on your heart. And so CJ also, she's a person who she enjoyed singing, but had never been a part of a worship team. And for the last year, she beautifully led worship for us. And just to see her heart there, her vulnerability, her bravery in doing that, I'm like, man, this is it. This is why we're here. And another one of the coolest things is that we built a close relationship with the Moontower apartments. This is where our church was housed, and there was almost 600 students in this apartment, none of whom, I want to say none, but most of them didn't attend church. And so they got to receive that support from us as a church. They knew us, they knew who we were, they knew we were about it, because we always brought food too. So they were like, yeah, we know y'all are coming. And so whether it was just like an encouraging word, a happy hour with food, I got to do Ashes on Ash Wednesday. And the coolest thing was that the first ever baptism that I got to do was in the Moontower Apartments pool. And so I was kind of worried because some students were partying up there. And I was like, hey, man, like there's students up there. We're about to go do this thing. We got this group of people coming. We're going to do this baptism. And so he's like, I'm going to go talk to him. So he goes and talks to him. And he's like, oh, they're just going to stay and hang out. And so I was like a little worried about it. I was like, oh, I don't know how they're going to receive us or what they're going to do. But literally they stopped everything they were doing, turned off their music, stopped everything they were doing, and they became a part of the moment, a part of this baptism, and they celebrated this with us. And I just thought, man, God, look what you've done. Look what you've done, because we went to a group of people who people thought, nah, there's no use in that. And we were a part of this change within them and within this community. And some of them they'd never been exposed to church. They may not ever be exposed to church again, but we were it for them. And I love that. And so over the 2 years, we continue to fight. We continue to fight for what we believe was right, which was that anyone could have a seat at the table and everyone could be loved by Jesus. And this thought process made things more difficult for us. And as Haman described Mordecai, I felt this, like this being a certain people dispersed among this providence whose customs are different and they don't obey the king's laws. And so Haman asked to destroy the Jews, and the king's response was, do with them as you please. He nonchalantly allowed a group of people to be condemned to death because his second in command truly just asked. And so Haman decides to move forward with this plan, and word gets back to the Jewish people, and they begin to lament and to mourn for what they believe is their future, which is death. This is their fate, but because of customs, their fate would not be carried out for another 11 months. And so the people are mourning, and Esther, who's sitting in this high position within this palace, she's not connected to the outside world. And so she ends up getting word that people are mourning, and she's asking, what's happening? What's happening in the streets? And she hears that Mordecai is leading this like procession of mourn. And so she can't speak directly to Mordecai, but she sends a servant, and they speak back and forth. And so Mordecai asked her to go to the king, and she responds and says, like, my hands are tied. I can't do that, because you're unable to speak to the king unless you're called for. And so it was the customs and laws that if you went out of turn to the king, like, you could be subjected to death. And so she's like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about this. And so Mordecai responds to her in chapter 4, verse 12, and it says, when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: do not think because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. I think this is a reminder to Esther to remember who you are, remember where you came from, and know that's what will happen if you remain silent and if you do not stand up for what is right and stand up for your community. He says God will make another way, though. God will make another way, because God always makes a way out of no way. But what if this way is through you? Your voice and your purpose and your position. And Mordecai says, and who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. But who knows that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. For such a time as this, God has placed each of us exactly where we're at in order to fulfill our purpose. We must dig deep and find out what it is that God wants us to do with our positions within our community. Over and over again, I felt the weight and the depth. Like I felt this heavy burden of what we were doing and why I was here in Austin. I felt the weight of my position. But I had to continue to remember, but what if I was placed in this position for such a time as this? For this community and for these people, for this church and the students that we would meet and all the people, the hundreds of students and people that would come through our church throughout our time at Moontower. The people who were able to feel loved, the people who were able to feel accepted, the people who were not judged, the people who truly could be in their own being. What freedom that is, right? And because we pressed on when things got difficult and we continued to cast our vision and be a group who found reasons to invite you in rather than leave you out, we got to have more testimonies and more stories of students like Hannah. Hannah graduated from UT. She's not here today, but she graduated from UT, and we got to celebrate her. She graduated through UT, and she stayed around, and she became our worship pastor. And so what she had to say was, Moontower Church was a safe place where everyone was welcome to the table. Moontower, what I like to call it, Mooney, I don't know why she liked to call it Mooney, but was where I was accepted as a person and as a leader. I made friends who became family, and through the people and all the moments, I was able to experience God hold me up and hold me together. At Mooney, I experienced God as my comforter and my friend. I'm forever grateful and forever changed by what God did at Moontower Church, and it is my greatest honor to have been there at all. And so I love this because if you knew Hannah, which you don't, but she's a church kid, has grown up in church her whole life, has been leading worship since she was like 7. And so she had this expectation and this weight on her, like, hey, you gotta have it all together, you gotta know what you're talking about, you gotta come with it. And so for her to just come to Moontower and to lead in a way where she could also doubt and she could also ask questions was just so much freedom. And so there were just many testimonies, but there was also hardship. There was also the ups and there was the downs, and even through the loss of funds. Yes, as soon as I was hired as pastor of Moontower Church, we lost $60,000 because I was a woman and because I was a Black woman. And so through the loss of funds, through the turnover in our initial launch group, through changes in leadership, through threats from larger organizations, yes, that's why you haven't seen me. I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision. And I had to distance myself from Restore so that we could keep our church space and I could keep on inviting people in. I can keep on loving them because of our positions, because of our theology, and because of our beliefs. Like I still got to do the things that God wanted me to do. I still got to teach and love people, invite everyone and anyone in, but this was a choice I had to make. And so through all of these things, we continue to place our feet firmly in the idea that this church, this place, that Moontower was recreated for all people. This church was created for such a time as this. And we're here so we can welcome and we can love our community, embrace the people who have church hurt, embrace the people who don't know exactly what this thing is about, but they need a little hope. We were there to love and to love all. And that's so crucial in a time where we feel like there is no hope. And the sweet thing is that we formed a community where in the midst of loneliness and isolation, these are students and we're all people who have come out of COVID, right? Coming back, returning to our life. And so getting through this isolation, this different feeling and this social anxiety, we created a community that could rest in the goodness and love of one another and most importantly, in God. And so it's like, how could something so sweet end? This is what I've been struggling with. And I think Esther shows what it means to make difficult decisions during difficult times and how God can still be working behind the scenes. And in many circumstances, even when we feel like he's not, he's still working. He's still working. And we know that God works it out for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose and to his plan. And so if you're curious about how both of these stories end, I'll start with how the story of Esther ends. Is that she chooses to risk her life to speak to the king, and as it was customary, she couldn't come to the king at a turn, and so she risks her life, and she uses her position to save her community. She risked it all, and guess what? Things turn around in her favor. And the king is so delighted to see her that he overlooks the law, and he listens to her, and he allows her to make a decree that will allow the Jewish people to defend and protect themselves from their enemies. And so, as for our Moontower Church community, some of our Moontower Church community gave up on church, understandably so, because of what happened to us. And some found a new church home where they can be safe and free to be who they are, accepted, and all of these things. And the win in all of this, though, is that no matter where they landed, that they haven't given up on God. They haven't given up on God, and they haven't given up on our community, the community of people who found a collective voice together in Moontower Church. You see, amazing things happen when we love each other in community, and we understand that the most important thing is how well we can love each other exactly where we're at. This is the way that Christ intended us in our purpose within our community. It is that all that we do is out of love for one another and love for our community. And if we do this, then we don't have to worry about the four walls of the church sustaining our faith. But we know that our faith is found directly in Jesus, directly in the one who created us, and directly in the one whose image we bear. And so although we won't continue to gather as Moontower Church, our community, it will still remain. This fire still burns inside of me for the things that we did, the people who we met, all the people who we loved. All the people who found life, not in the church, but in Jesus, through the church, through Moontower Church and what God built. And we found love for one another that will forever and ever exist. And we know that God is pleased. We know that God is pleased with how we use our position for such a time as this. And so as we end this, you're probably actually also wondering, what's next for me? Well, it's really exciting what's next for me. I talked about that 5-year Portugal plan. We're coming up on about 5 years, and the incredible thing is that we will be fulfilling that destiny and that mission of going and living in beautiful places and experiencing culture outside of, our normal, what we know. And so we're gonna be, me and my little 4-year-old, he is just like insane for the pool, for the beach, for all the things. If you met him, you're like, oh my, he's wild, so fun. He has a little bit of my energy, a lot of bit of my energy and spunk. And so him and we're gonna head over to Cabo, and we're just gonna, live on the beach and hang out. And honestly, I just wanna live into a community where I can rest, where I can reset, and where I can also just find people to love and encourage, and people who will also pour back into me. I'm sad. This was my last weekend in Austin, and I was very intentional about building a community and having friends here. And I'm so proud that I did just that. And I have people who love me and love me deeply, and who I love so deeply, who have been saying bye to this long goodbye. But all of these things, I believe that because of my faith, because of my obedience, God gave me everything back and more. There was so much grief and so much hardship, and I know many of us have experienced that, right? Throughout these last few years. Like, it's been a wild ride as a collective. And I know we feel that this is a place, this is a community that you could be, and you can have the freedom to feel without judgment, the freedom to just be loved. Man, what a release that is. And so I'm so proud of Zach and all of the team here and everything that we've done together. Like, it was a roller coaster ride for sure. But I'm excited about what God is gonna do and what God is continuing to do, and all the reasons why I needed to be positioned, right, for such a time as this. And so I'm gonna pray for us as a collective and as a community, that in your positions that you would find what your heart burns for. You would find that thing that lights your fire. You would find that way to just love everybody where they're at. And so, like I said, the four walls of the church would not sustain our faith, but it would be who we are everywhere that we are. And so let us pray. God, we just thank you so much for this community, this group, this collective, the opportunities that you've given us just to be, to ask questions, to doubt, and to understand that you are our ultimate provider, God. When things don't look the way that we think that they should, God, you're working, and you're working in the midst of heartache and tragedy. And God, you'll bring the people, God. You'll create the spaces so that you could use us in the way that you have designed, Jesus, and that we would be used in our purpose, God, and in our passions, and that those things would be fulfilled through the hope that we have in you, Jesus. And so, God, as we close out this time, I pray that we would just all be encouraged by the people who we have around us, and God, the people you will bring to us in order to serve and love one another and be loved and be served and be poured into in the same way that we pour out to others. God, we thank you so much for loving us. This in your precious and holy Son's name we pray. Amen. Thank you. I'm gonna stay here because we're gonna do a little thing.
Yeah. We just have a couple more things really quick. I wanted to first just come and publicly affirm Iver, and the way that you've led over these last few years has been incredible. I think that, when you have this thing to come and start this sister church, and on our end thinking about I hope that we really help this thing get off the ground and do incredible stuff, and we can kind of be behind the scenes and really empower and teach and all that kind of stuff. And I think I probably learned more from you than you did from me over the years. And so I just appreciate you teaching and leading in such incredible ways. You've been amazing to work with, and will always be, brother and sister forever.
For sure.
So I wanted to fill in a little bit of a gap on our end of the story, which is that, we got approached years ago about starting this church on campus at UT in this facility. There was a new facility being built. The people who owned it wanted to start it, and we'd been approached by them, and they said, this is what we'd like. And we said, okay, I'm not sure, how much value congruence there is between us, but if there's enough and you're comfortable with us doing it our way, which is the way that Iver just described so beautifully up here, then we're in. And so they said, you know what, 100%, you've got our support, you do it your way, you make it happen. And I think one big learning and takeaway was not necessarily trusting that at the very beginning, but waiting for more demonstrations. The idea of when people kind of show you who they are, that you should believe them rather than just the words that they say, listening more to the actions that they do. And so that was a big takeaway. But another huge takeaway for me was when we were going through the interview process with Iver. So we'd raised a bunch of money already. We'd actually had hired somebody about a year or so before Iver to do small groups here at Restore and help at Moontower. His name was John. Some of you remember John. And then COVID hits, and it wasn't really working out, and so John left. And so we kind of started the process over as the launch for Moontower got pushed back. And so we started over, and we connected with Iver and a number of other candidates, and we're walking through this process. And I remember during the conversation of hey, I think this is going to work. Let's make this happen. Let's hire you officially. You kind of gave me a little bit of a warning. You were just hey, I just need you to know that there's going to be some roadblocks. And I was like, nah, it'll be fine. It'll be totally fine. She was like, no, I don't think you understand. Being a black woman, there's which I don't, and fairness. I think I believed you theoretically, but I didn't really understand. And Iver's right. The day that we hired her, we had, posted about it. Hey, this is our new pastor at Moontower. We had made some calls to people we'd already raised money with, and we lost $60,000 that day from people who pulled out. And it was one of the more shocking, baffling, angering things that I remember that day so vividly. And I had 3 conversations because it was 3 organizations that pulled out. And, the first one pulled out initially and then was well, you know what, Iver can come actually present to us. And so we did that in good faith. I said, I don't want to just drive up and present if it's not for real. And Iver gives this, presentation with a bunch of other church planters. It was by far the best one. Even the people in the meeting afterwards said it. Iver gives her presentation. She gets asked the most asinine questions, which is who is really the pastor of this church, though? For real. Is it your husband? Yeah. Or they asked you if you knew what the gospel was.
Yeah, they asked me what the gospel was.
Yep. It was really
kind of, yeah.
It was, but
at this point.
It was so demeaning. But I mean, you were incredible. You were just rolled with it, Answered, kind, faithful, direct, the whole thing. Killed it. they were like, Iver, that was great. Thank you so much. She walks out of the room, goes into the hall, and they're like deliberating, and I got to stay in for that part because I'm a man, and stayed in for that part. And I remember right when it starts, they were like, well, that was probably the best presentation, but we can't fund her because she's a woman. And I mean, like immediately. And I was so mad. I mean, like, Iver probably heard me yelling in the hallway. I mean, I was like mad. And I was like, we drove all the way up here, did all this stuff. Like, you made her go through this. So mad. So that was the first one. The second one, they were telling me about, it's not even just that she's a woman, it's that she's a black woman. And I was like, you can't say things like that, like, believe that, I guess, but like, you can't say stuff like that, And I was like, how, like, make that make sense, Because you've known, we have women pastors, we have women elders. My bosses are women, 3 of the 4. And so I'm like, you knew this already, right? Like, that we have women in every area of leadership. And they were like, well, yeah, but like, they weren't like in front every week, So I was like, it's not even theology, it's just like aesthetic conversation that we're having right now. And then it was like, it's not even just that she's a woman, she's a black woman. I was like, make me understand the black part then, like, tell me. And they were like, well, you can't really like always trust like theology from black people, stuff. And I remember being, again, so angry, yelling on the phone. It sometimes takes me a long.
Lots of emails.
Lots of fiery emails. And that Iver got CC'd on. And I go back to Iver, and I remember saying, like, you told me this would happen. I had no idea that it would be this level, though. And I'm so angry, and I'm flipping out. And, like, you seem so calm. Like, how do you deal with this? Like, how do you go through this? And I'll never forget, you basically just said, like, I'm not surprised. Like, this is what it's like. And so I just wanted to ask you about, like, how has that been, and what does it look like to navigate that even moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I told Zach, I was like, are you ready for this? You're the only person I would do this with because of what you already stood for. Before it was cool, you were already fighting for justice and all of these things. And so I'm like, all right, you are the person I do this with, but you have to understand what we're about to do. And so you told me, I'm going to be in front of you. I'm going to deflect as much as I possibly can. I trusted that, and I believed that, and as soon as we got into it, things started popping off and happening, and they were angry, and I was just like, why are y'all so mad? Like, they were literally so angry, and I'm just like, welcome? Like, welcome? And that also, like, I looked at that and I was like, man, I'm actually, though, sad for that. Like, sad that this is the reality. I know what it means to be a trailblazer. I know what it means to be the first, and this is the brunt of it. Like, I take that. And so one of the other things was I've learned through this process that I can hold 2 very different emotions at the same time, and it's very healthy. And so on one end, I was like so proud of my friends. I was feeling like, man, they have my back. They're behind me. Like, I felt love from that, right? But the other part of it, I was angry because I couldn't be angry. Angry was a privilege. If I was angry, I was the angry black woman, and here I was being put in yet another box just for being and for feeling what I was supposed to feel, right? But one thing with this, I told that I've got to put blinders on. If I let everything come into me, then I won't stand and I won't sustain. And so this is me focused with my blinders on, knowing that, all right, God has placed me. God has positioned me. Like, this is the prize. These are the people. This is what I need you here for. And that's what I did. And I kept going and I kept moving because of God and God alone, honestly. It wasn't I was blessed to be affirmed by everybody and to be loved by everybody and know that, like, yeah, this is my position. But it was God, and it was God alone that sustained me. And I tell people, if I didn't have a direct relationship with God and I didn't have like true faith in Jesus, I would never, ever be part of the church again. But because of who God is.
Amen. Yeah, you can clap for that, for sure.
That's why I'm here.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That was an incredible realization for me, right? Beginning to understand privilege and power and all of the stuff that comes from that, right? From the color of my skin and my gender and, where I was born, the family I was in, all of that kind of stuff. I think beginning to understand that, but then even seeing it as like the ability to be in the room and yell at those guys was a privilege, right? Like she wasn't even in the room anymore. Like she wasn't even allowed in the room, right? And so like, what does it look like for any of us with any level of power and privilege, regardless of where we are in this world, whatever we have to steward that power and privilege in the service of others, to do it, to lay it at the feet of Jesus and use whatever we have to help other people. And that's been such a huge takeaway for me, and I think you've modeled that in such incredible ways. So
Appreciate it.
I wanted to read a quick quote, and then we're going to pray for you and kind of, commission you out to Cabo, the best commissioning post ever. That's going to be dope.
Also,
I'm very excited.
I'm excited. I'm going to take swim lessons on the beach. I'm in the ocean, I'm so excited for that. I'm going to take surf lessons.
It's going to be awesome.
I'm going to be out there doing yoga headstands on the beach all day.
It's going to be so great. You got a great school from Manitou International School. Super excited. It's going to be awesome. But this quote from Rachel Held Evans, I think, so perfectly encapsulates, kind of what the church is and what Moontower was and is. And so I just want to read it to us. And she says, "The truth is, the church doesn't offer a cure. It doesn't offer a quick fix. The church offers death and resurrection. The church offers the messy, inconvenient, gut-wrenching, never-ending work of healing and reconciliation. The church offers grace." And I think you, Iver, as a pastor in Moontower Church, embodied that quote and embodied the life-giving love of Jesus inside of a church family as well as anything I've ever seen. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
What a journey. What a journey. What a story.
What a story.
We'll forever have to tell. It's ours.
That's it.
It's our story.
All right, I'm going to say a quick prayer, and then we're going to be dismissed. So God, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for Iver, for CJ, for Hannah, God, for so many others, Ross and Kitty, so many others who led in such incredible ways over the years at Moontower. And I thank you for the way that you worked in and through them to do such beautiful, amazing things. And I think about how not only did so many people have such an incredible experience with you and with community at Moontower, but God, that you used Iver and Moontower and those leaders to expose so much of the hypocrisy and the dark side of church so that it could come to the light, so that we could condemn it for what it is, God, which is not of you. God, I pray that we would be a church and that we would call other churches in this city and all over the place to be churches who follow you, Jesus. To be churches who love you, that put others first, God, that love God and love our neighbor as you said is most important, God. I pray that we would not be timid about standing in and doing that, and we would not be timid about calling others to do the same. And that, like we said, we would use whatever power, privilege, position that we have, like Esther, like Iver, like so many others, to stand in for people who need help, to lift them up, to love them, and to point them to your love, Jesus. I pray this in his name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.